I watched the contacts gather on my screen, steady and undeniable. I sent the warning and my superiors told me to confirm it again. The harbor stayed calm while the distance closed. At noon, the sky answered what they would not. On October 14, 1943, in the port city of Bari, southern Italy, Allied forces controlled the harbor following the Italian armistice. The port functioned as a vital logistics hub for the British Eighth Army. Cargo vessels arrived daily with fuel, ammunition, medical supplies, and food. Anti-aircraft defenses ringed the harbor, but coverage remained uneven. Radar capacity in the region was limited and often dependent on mobile units positioned along the coast. Among the personnel assigned to the harbor defense network was a British radar operator attached to a coastal warning station outside the city. Thus, his responsibility was routine and procedural. He monitored the cathode ray display, tracked approaching aircraft signatures, logged bearings, and relayed findings through established communication channels. The work required patience rather than heroics. Most contacts proved harmless. Friendly aircraft frequently crossed the screen. Occasional returns were caused by atmospheric distortion. The operational situation in October was defined by Allied confidence. German air activity over southern Italy had decreased after the landings at Salerno. Intelligence reports suggested that the Luftwaffe's capacity in the region was diminished. Port activity increased accordingly. Ships remained tightly packed in the harbor due to limited berthing space. Nighttime blackout procedures were sometimes relaxed to accelerate unloading. The radar operator noted this change in routine. Traffic control requests had increased. Civilian dock workers operated extended shifts. Signal staff reported more radio chatter than earlier in the month. The system functioned under pressure, but no formal alert level had been raised. Shortly before noon on December 2, 1943, the radar screen displayed a cluster of returns approaching from the northeast over the Adriatic. The formation appeared organized. The bearing did not correspond to scheduled Allied flights. The operator recalibrated the set. He adjusted gain and sweep. The contacts remained steady and multiplied. He logged the time and estimated range. The distance closed rapidly. He transmitted a warning to the Harbor Control Command Post. The message was concise. Multiple aircraft detected. Altitude uncertain. Course consistent with Bari. The response was procedural. Confirmation was requested. Higher command had received no intelligence indicating an imminent air raid. The skies over Bari had been quiet for weeks. A senior officer at the port reportedly remarked that German bombers would not risk daylight exposure over a heavily supplied Allied harbor. The radar operator repeated his observation. The cluster had expanded. Individual blips merged and separated. The pattern suggested formation flying rather than random noise. He requested that anti-aircraft units be alerted. Minutes passed. The contacts drew closer. The warning was acknowledged, but not escalated. Some batteries remained on standby rather than full engagement posture. Sirens in the city were not immediately activated. At approximately 12:25 p.m., German Junkers, Ju-88 bombers appeared over the harbor at medium altitude. They approached in coordinated waves. The radar station, positioned outside the immediate target zone, observed the final convergence before visual confirmation spread through the city. Bombs began falling among the tightly packed ships. Explosions ignited fuel stores. Ammunition detonated. Dockside cranes collapsed into the water. Thick smoke rose in columns, visible for miles. The harbor had been illuminated the previous night to expedite unloading. Reflected sunlight off ships and warehouses offered clear aiming points. Anti-aircraft response intensified only after the first wave released its payload. Within minutes, multiple vessels were ablaze. One of them, the American Liberty ship SS John Harvey, carried a secret cargo of mustard gas munitions, as the presence of chemical weapons in the harbor had been classified. Local authorities and most military personnel were unaware of their existence. As fires spread, mustard gas leaked into the water and air. Sailors and dock workers exposed to the vapor exhibited symptoms not immediately understood. Blistering, eye irritation, respiratory distress followed in the hours after the raid. The radar operator continued transmitting situational updates. His role remained observational. He tracked departing aircraft. He attempted to determine whether additional waves were inbound. Communications became congested. Lines failed intermittently due to damage in the city. By the end of the attack, 17 ships had been destroyed or severely damaged. Hundreds were killed. Thousands were injured. The port's operational capacity collapsed overnight. Yet in the immediate aftermath, confusion overshadowed analysis. Fires burned for days. Medical personnel treated casualties without full knowledge of chemical exposure. Many who had been pulled from the water deteriorated unexpectedly in hospital wards. The radar operator filed his written report that evening. He documented the initial detection time, bearing, estimated aircraft numbers, and the sequence of warnings transmitted. He included the delay between first contact and visual confirmation. He noted the absence of a full alert response. The report moved through administrative channels. Command inquiries focused first on the chemical incident. The existence of mustard gas munitions became a classified matter of urgent concern. Public communication minimized mention of the scale of the raid. Official statements framed the event as an isolated strike. Within weeks, an internal review examined harbor defense readiness. Questions were raised about radar coverage, response protocols, and command assumptions. The operator was interviewed by investigators. He described the screen image in measured terms. He explained his recalibration procedures. He confirmed that the contact pattern had been consistent with hostile formation flight. He was asked whether atmospheric conditions could have produced false returns. He stated that while anomalies were possible, the clarity and persistence of the contacts had indicated genuine aircraft. The inquiry did not produce public disciplinary action. The institutional focus remained on operational recovery. Replacement ships were routed. Debris was cleared. Anti-aircraft positions were strengthened. Yet within the radar unit, informal conversations acknowledged the missed opportunity. Had sirens sounded earlier, some ships might have maneuvered. Anti-aircraft crews might have been at full readiness. Civilian workers might have reached shelter. The operator continued his assignment in the following months. Radar coverage expanded along the Italian coast. Training emphasized rapid escalation procedures. Standing orders were revised to grant greater discretion to warning stations when multiple contacts appeared. He did not receive commendation. Nor was he censured. His role remained largely anonymous within official histories. Medical consequences in Bari persisted quietly. Physicians eventually identified mustard gas exposure as the cause of unusual injuries. Yet reports were classified due to concerns about chemical warfare policy. Survivors carried long-term respiratory and ocular damage. The event became known later as the Little Pearl Harbor, though the phrase emerged informally. At the time, operational language remained restrained. The radar operator's logbook entry for December 2nd remained concise. Time, bearing, estimated range, message transmitted, no embellishment. The institutional lesson centered on coordination. Radar technology, still relatively new in field deployment, depended on human interpretation and trust. Early warning required not only detection, but belief. In subsequent Allied operations, integrated air defense networks incorporated lessons from Bari. Redundancy in communication lines increased. Alert authority was decentralized in some theaters. The operator completed his service before the end of the war. His records were archived. His name appeared only in unit rosters and routine administrative documents. The bombing of Bari did not alter the strategic direction of the Italian campaign. Supply lines were restored. The Eighth Army advanced northward. Yet within the harbor defense system, the incident remained a case study in procedural hesitation. An alert had been transmitted. It had been acknowledged. It had not been acted upon with urgency. The distance between detection and decision measured only minutes. Within that interval lay the vulnerability of a crowded harbor and the weight of assumption. In later years, declassified documents revealed more detail about the chemical cargo and the scale of casualties. But as scholars reviewing the raid often returned to the timeline established by radar logs. Those logs demonstrated that warning had existed. The radar operator's duty had been fulfilled according to protocol. The failure resided not in the screen's glow, but in the interpretation above it. Institutional culture favored confidence. The belief that enemy air power in the region was depleted shaped the response. Evidence that contradicted this belief encountered hesitation. The harbor at Bari was rebuilt. Trade resumed. Physical scars faded over decades. The lesson persisted in military doctrine. Early warning systems are only as effective as the authority granted to those who operate them. The operator himself did not publish memoirs. His testimony remained within inquiry transcripts. His career continued in technical roles after the war, according to surviving service summaries. The noon raid on Bari stands as an example of how information can exist without impact. Detection alone does not compel action. Records show that radar contacts were first plotted approximately 20 minutes before bombs fell. 20 minutes offered time. Time required trust. When trust faltered, the sky over Bari filled with aircraft unchallenged until too late. Today, the event is examined in professional military education as part of broader studies in air defense coordination and intelligence processing. The radar operator's role illustrates the narrow margin between routine observation and critical warning. He observed. He reported. The decision moved elsewhere. The bombers came at noon.